So let's do the discussions. I have a lawyer, politician here, and member of parliament for Kankwe Central. That's the foremost important position for him because he has to go to his constituents after he's won his primaries for re-election. But he's a deputy minister, water and sanitation. Patrick Boamah, good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland.
You look very immaculate in your black suit.
Thank you very much. You are too mischievous.
Oh.
Good morning and good morning to my constituents in Kankwe Central. The good people of Ghana.
I haven't seen you this year.
You have a happy new year.
Okay, happy new year too.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
A very good program.
Thank you.
I wish the entire staff a happy new year.
All right, thanks for joining us this morning. I've seen that there had been some complaints about sanitation, but at the same time, a lot of things are being done simultaneously. Tell us a little bit about them.
Thank you very much. The sanitation issue, the ministry led by Honorable Ada, with the assemblies and the sub-metros, have designed a strategy to reduce the sanitation concerns in the country. If you've looked around lately, the AMA boss has started a program. I think if you go around at dawn, all the 11 major roads that comes into the city, is engage people who are working on them between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. It's a process. It's a process. I always stop at Circle to ensure that, around Tiptoe Lane and the Ghana Telecom area, a lot of fields there. So Moses Abo, who we call the Circle Mayor, is in charge of that operations there. The minister has gone through with the National Sanitation Authority Bill, which I'm reviewing with a team in the office, so that the vision of the president in setting up a sanitation authority comes to full realization. So this year we'll see a lot of more action in the area of sanitation, and we believe that sanitation is dignity, and whatever it takes for us to ensure that the vision of the president to make Accra one of the cleanest cities in Africa is achieved.
Are we learning from other cities on the continent who have done well, perhaps?
Rightly so. A country that comes to mind readily that Africans mention, or when it comes to the implementation of sanitation laws, I won't go far, it's Rwanda. And we are learning a lot from them. We are picking some of the strategies that they adopted. And I believe that within the year, we'll see a lot more improvement in the area of sanitation. If you drive on the Kolebu Road, you see that a new mini transfer station is coming up under the leadership of the AMA boss, just to be a receptacle to receive the waste, because most of the landfill sites are getting full. We need to find new ways of receiving the waste. There's going to be about 4 or 5 compactors there to receive them. That's why we ought to give the AMA boss the support. Secondly, a good strategy that the president has adopted is to create some more municipalities out of the AMA to make the handling of some of these issues handy, let me put it that way. Dansoman is now a municipality. My constituency and Okankwe North are now Okankwe North Municipal Assembly. Ayawaso North, Ayawaso West, Honorable Ejako's place. So he's broken it down to manageable levels so that some of these issues could be handled by the Metropolitan Assembly, the AMA, the municipal assemblies that he has created, so that there will be more efficiency on the ground.
What has counted or gone counter to all the effort to make sure we have a clean city or perhaps have clean environment across the country have been the negative attitudes of people?
The answer is what you just mentioned. Attitude not change. People sit in vehicles, they spit, they pack, they urinate, they dump anywhere. And they tell you that, oh, we don't have refuse dumps, we don't have containers. You know us, we are, if you don't if you don't put certain measures in check, they'll give you excuses. So, for example, some non-governmental organizations have even come to see some of us, and I, for one, Senor Jose's group, Ghana Sanitation Group, they are providing about 1,000 waste bins, and I offered to provide 50 in support of their effort to be marked and to be placed at certain locations, strategic locations, so that people wouldn't have the excuse of saying that when I drank my sachet water, I didn't have a place to throw the rubber, or when I ate my wache, I didn't have anywhere to leave the wache leaf or what have you. So a lot more activity will be rolled out this year, and I believe that is going to help with the sanitation efforts of the government.
Well, we also want to help and support you, so that, because we know it's more of the attitude, it's not because of perhaps the inability of the ministry to be able to coordinate all that, but also empowering the various MMDCs and the MMDAs. But it's the MMDCs that become the focal point. What the trend has been, after 2 years of a government coming into office, when that transition towards the election year is coming, then the enforcement measures become relaxed.
Correct. Because you see, if you take the MMDCs should take a cue from one minister, let's say the finance minister, who did not relax the rules, ensure that government stayed within its program in terms of expenditure. Same must apply to you, the DCO or MCE, to ensure that you don't go back to demolish or get people off the street after elections. They should always know that the rules or the regulations and the laws governing local authorities are complied with, regardless of the time, space. So that whether before, during, or after the election, they know that they are not supposed to sit here and trade. They know that they are not supposed to urinate here. They know that there's a public toilet here. They know that they are not supposed to dump refuse here. They know that when they do A, B, C, D, they'll be taken to the sanitation court. So law enforcement is key. That is why the president launched the sanitation campaign. He spoke about advocacy, communication, law enforcement, and the establishment of a national sanitation authority as the focal authority to ensure that all these measures are well taken care of. So I believe that, and I must encourage the MMDCs, that they should ensure that at all points they enforce, they make sure that the laws governing sanitation, water, and any other law is enforced within their locality. That is the only way that government's vision of making this country a clean country will be realized.
Well, let's do the transition and discuss the day's topical issues, and what has occupied the news media and also the social media platforms over the last 12 hours has been Gitmo 2 and, well, the declaration before Parliament, the plenary, by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, now saying that they are now refugees because they were granted that status way back in 2016. And I know that you're a member of the, is it the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament?
That's correct.
And just tell us about it. Well, you were in the last Parliament too.
That's correct.
Can you just give us some brief recall and why we're here currently doing this debate?
Thank you very much. A brief background. The opposition New Patriotic Party at the time got wind of the entry into the country of the Gitmo 2. So issues were raised, government was not forthcoming. We had to summon the foreign minister to Parliament, and it took a while. She came, she met Parliament in camera. She briefed us in February. That was when the Gitmo 2 entered this country in January. So when she came, she told us the circumstances leading to their arrival into this country, and they mentioned security issues. They are the government of the day, so they had information to share, who were we? We only had to probe further and ask questions about government's obligation and what have you. Fast forward, two nationals went to court. We challenged the decision of government at the time and asked government to come to Parliament with their agreement and ensure that it complies with Article 73, 74, 75 of the National Constitution, which they refused until Nana Boakye and the other lady, Margaret, took the matter to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled, and rightly so, that those agreements, not having complied with the Constitution of this country, were unconstitutional. Two, the Supreme Court gave government, that is the New Patriotic Party government, because that is the National Democratic Congress government, to bring those documents to Parliament for ratification or expel the
Gitmo too.
The Gitmo too.
And they are staying Ghana.
And they are staying. That wasn't done. The MPP came into government. We had to look into a few things, transition and what have you, and those documents were ratified. Now, this same National Democratic Congress members, led by their ranking member, Samuel Kujetu, was asking government to provide the exit strategy to the good people of Ghana. The fact being that their stay in Ghana post-January had expired. Little did he know that his government had granted refugee status to these alleged terrorists. Government of Ghana, led by President Akufo-Addo, is a law-abiding government. Even if we disagreed with the decisions of the National Democratic Congress, we have to subject it to PNDC Law 350D, that's the Refugee Laws of Ghana. Even if we want to send the Gitmo 2 out, we ought to do certain checks. One, whether there were procedural flaws in the grant of their refugee status, whether the requirements as set out under the law were met. This is what the foreign minister briefed Parliament, that government, that's the MPP government, certain facts leading to the acquisition of the refugee status of these nationals were concealed. Until yesterday, I believe the whole country didn't know that these Gitmo 2 gentlemen had been given refugee status. It came to most of the people of this country as a surprise. Also, only to be told that they've been married, their families are being asked to integrate here and what have you. Because once you acquire that status, you acquire certain rights under the laws of Ghana, unless government has questions about the grant of your refugee status, as stated under Section 15 of the refugee law. So this is the background. This has led to this debate again on the Gitmo 2, their entry into their country, the briefing by Foreign Minister Hannah Tete, the Supreme Court decision and the ruling and the implementation, the subsequent ratification of the agreement, and the revelations that the Foreign Minister and the Interior Minister made to Parliament yesterday. So yesterday, I spoke on the matter on the floor. The Defense Minister spoke. He's a member of the National Security Council. The Interior Minister spoke. The Foreign Minister spoke. All three are members of the National Security Council. So, and the National Security Minister, knowing how sensitive this matter was also on the floor of Parliament to observe proceedings. So I believe that, all in all, government has been responsible. Government has taken the necessary steps to investigate the stay and the processes leading to the acquisition of their refugee status. And I believe that government will do all it takes to protect the interests of this country and ensure that these nationals do not cause or pose any danger to the citizens of this country.
Now, at the end of the day, we know that government is supposed to ensure that it protects the sovereignty and also maintain security. and give that assurance inherent to the citizens. Now, because of the international treaties and the pact that we have enjoined ourselves to, does that not in any way give us the right to renounce that refugee status in any way? Of the two?
I've read the refugees law, and it's like trying an accused person in court. You have to prove beyond reasonable doubt when you are trying an accused person. So the courts are all, and so it's about a person's civil liberties when you are trying an accused person. When I read the law, I realized that it was an incorporation or an insertion of UN protocols of 1959 and 1967 into the laws of this country. So international law requires that you give them all the benefits under those treaties which Ghana had assented to the extent that they could even apply for naturalization. They could integrate freely within our society unless you have reasonable cause to believe that they are a threat to the security of this country, which you must lead evidence to establish. If you want to expel them, they have 14 days within the law to appeal against any decision of the secretary, in this instance the minister. And the minister must satisfy the international community to why he wants to send them back. So it's an appeal task for government. I believe the Interior Minister is a lawyer. He would go through the necessary process, advise government on their stay, and what checks government has to put in place to ensure that they live within the confines of the law. If you read our Constitution, Article 40A, that in every international relations, the president or the government ought to put the interest of Ghanaians at the highest pinnacle, that you have to protect the interest of the good people of Ghana. Question is, why didn't the NDC at the time bring the documents to Parliament for ratification? What were they hiding? What are they agreed with the Americans? And all of these are questions that you ought to probe. My concluding statement on this is that government ought to invite Honorable Hannah Tete and Honorable Prosper Bani, who was Interior Minister
at the time
and Foreign Minister, to further ask them questions as to what led to some of these applications and grants of refugee status and what have you, so that some of these matters are settled. Two, whether the NDC in their transition document on security revealed to government that they had granted refugee status, and why, if not, why they concealed some of these facts to the incoming government.
All right, so now let's get to the floor of Parliament. Even though he was there, the Foreign Minister was on the floor to brief members. So we take that soundbite and then we'll come up, we'll have some wrap-up comments on this Gitmo 2 subject.
It has been quite difficult, and we still continue to look at ways in which we can clean this thing up, but for now, it is impossible to do anything about it because they are legally resident here as a result of them being granted refugee status. In conclusion, I did say in my statement that we are constrained as a government to explore any other options at this time. But then we will await an in-depth examination of the issues by the appropriate agencies.
And following that, the minister also told the members of Parliament that the government had tried to at least get some countries to accept them. That is, if they would propose or could be able to propose that to the two, and that's a Gitmo too, because now they're refugees, etc. But we're not told the countries, and we're not told what sort of efforts were nearly made, to which nearly 95% of the processes were nearly exhausted. And so it leaves people to wonder. You are government. You are to seek the interests of the people of Ghana. You may not have been told what was inherent in the agreement in detail, but government should be able to do something about it. Is government saying that nothing can be done?
Well, I think if you listened attentively to the concluding part of the minister's statement, which I commend her, she said that at this very moment, the Gitmo 2 they've attained the refugee status.
Well,
and that government will explore all other means to ensure that the security of this state is not compromised, to whatever it takes for government to ensure that these nationals are well kept within the confines of this country, until such a time that government completes its analysis and processes. The government will come back to tell the good people of this country the status of these people. Mind you, they've been here for close to two years.
Yes, 2 years.
Yes. And I know that national security has been monitoring their activities. They've been checking on them. They've been doing everything. So let's give government the space. Government has been very honest with the good people of Ghana on this issue. And so I believe that, journalist Kwesi Pratt, who was the president at the media briefing. So it took the minister less than a week to come and respond to this issue, because the president had promised that the full facts surrounding the Gitmo 2 will be laid to bear, which the minister did yesterday. So rest assured, everything within the law will be complied with.
All right. There's an issue about a leaked sex tape again. It involves a gentleman, apparently we're told is a headmaster of a school in the central region. And it also involved a young lady who is said to have been, or is, a 19-year-old final student of the Odobing Senior High School in the Sukuma Odobing Brakwa district. But it's been leaked, and as a result, the headmaster, the gentleman himself, Robert Sepe, had to leave the town, and in the process, there's been all kind of ongoings at the Ghana Education Service, also on social media and mainstream media, about the right of the two to, one, be in a relationship, to also have any kind of relationship with the lady at all. I don't know whether you have apprised yourself of the reports as they have been reported in the media, etc.
Yes, Raymond, I have, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate how the act got recorded, how it got leaked. I don't know what kind of arrangement they entered into, because it's total madness. And the life of this young lady, she cannot, I don't think she can live within that community. Two, the teacher, I'm sure, is on the run, because I'm sure he'll be lynched by the community if he tries to go back. So I think the Ghana Education Service will have to do something about it. That does not stop the investigative agencies of state to ensure that they do the proper investigations, and to ensure that, to find out whether the gentleman has fallen foul of any law of this country. You mentioned the age of the lady, 19. I asked that for a reason, because you know, age limits and what have you. So I haven't checked on whether it was rape. Well, I don't know whether there was consensual sex or what have you. I haven't looked at that.
Well, according to the reports, the young lady said that there was consensus between the two. It says both of them agreed to record the video while they were having sex so that they will watch later. It says a friend of a brother saw the video and decided to spread it. So there was it was consensual in a way.
So
but if somebody is 19,
why are they infesting us with their recording?
Well, it's gone viral.
I haven't seen it, though.
Okay, but let's talk about a 19-year-old and whoever the other party is can be in a relationship according to our laws, right?
It's attain the age of maturity, 18.
Okay.
Above.
So in that sphere, in which we have a viral video on going out and people criticizing, are we speaking just because of the morality of it, or just within the confines of the law?
Just within the morality, because the person who the story was attributed to is talking about consensual sex. And who are we to, unless we have cause to believe that they've violated certain aspects of any law, what can you do?
So a decision by the Ghana Education Service, we're told, to investigate is ongoing, but we're told the headmaster apparently has been sacked.
Investigations are ongoing, then the person has been sacked.
Well, we're told that.
Well, they should be careful so that the person does not take them on.
Yeah. Because he may have been the personality in the video, but it's still...
You see, I think somebody was telling me that...
You think it's a gray area, you don't want to go there?
No.
Okay.
Somebody was telling me that it's an issue that has been recurring in the community. In the community, and that members of the community had been investigating some of the teachers and their conduct within the locality. So I think maybe it was a trap. They fell into it. So let the law take its course. It's rather unfortunate.
Okay. The Imani has done an assessment of the MPP government, and we'll talk about the last issue before, but let's talk about Imani. They've done an assessment of the MPP government. They said so far so good. We have the story that we played to you, so we'll play that back to you about the Imani's assessment of the MPP government 1 year in office and what has been done right, and perhaps how well they are faring as a government in implementing and fulfilling some of their promises. So let's watch that story.
Imani has in the past undertaken assessments of government's performance by attaching scores based on promises fulfilled. This year's assessment did not take that form, as the think tank rather analyzed government's policies with no scores attached. On the economy, Imani commended government for attaining some stability with inflation and debt to GDP ratio recording a decline. Imani, however, pointed out government's failure to set up a fiscal council as promised as a minus. A research associate at Imani, Barbara Andor, presented the findings.
We know that the fiscal council has not been established within the first year. It was mentioned in the 2017 budget. There are no accounts of activities given to be undertaken for the establishment of the fiscal council in the 2018 budget. And we have a direct question for the government. Is the fiscal council no longer seen as an anchor for setting up and monitoring medium-term fiscal policy?
On education, the flagship free SHS program earned plaudits but was equally criticized for failing to address the needs of some students.
In the free SHS debate, we look at equity versus equality. We know that issues of access and equality have been addressed to some extent. However, we are concerned about the issue of equity because our students come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and we are providing them with the same amount of resources. This may not necessarily achieve equity. So there's a need for proper targeting because some students may necessarily need more funds than the free SHS is providing.
Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Koko Anyidoho, who sat through the presentation, believes the findings confirm his party's position that government has underperformed.
It's pretty obvious that there are a lot of talk has gone on from the point of government, from the manifesto pledges through the first budget presentation in 2017 to what actually they have done in 1 year. So the report tells us in aggregate terms that a lot of talk has gone on from government, but in terms of tangibles and in terms of the achievement index, there's a lot work to be done. And of course, somebody will say they have a 4-year mandate and they've only done 1 year. It is true. But if you're measuring by the 1-year standards, there's still a lot of work for the government to do.
Imani intends to present its findings in other parts of the country.
So you heard Koku Anyidoho in that story there. Says if we have to do an assessment year on year within a 4-year term, then government has not done too well. What's your own observations?
That's a very wrong assessment by Koku Anyidoho, and he knows that.
Why is that?
He knows that because, you see, if you leave government if you leave the country in such a mess and you expect President Akufo-Addo and his team to clear and revive the economy within 1 year, then you are not being honest with your own self. Go and look at the indicators. Everything has been turned around into a positive, from manufacturing, from budget deficits, from government total program. Free SHS, President Akufo-Addo started talking about it in his campaign in 2008. NDC from 2008 to January 2016 never saw any wisdom in what the president was talking about. If their policy was progressive and they sat through that progressive process, which was at a snail pace for 8 years, and President Akufo-Addo within 1 year comes to implement such a beautiful program, and you sit down and say that, oh, nothing has been done, they haven't done anything, then it's unfortunate. If government has been able to reduce the budget deficit, which they left over 9% to about 5.3%, if government today has been able to pay over 908 million Ghana cedis out of the 1.2 billion debt left at the National Health Insurance Authority, leaving claims for only 2016, then he should be clapping for government. If government has been able to roll out such an ambitious program as the One District, One Factory, with all the strategies in place. Yesterday, the AGI confirmed that through government, we are going to receive over $2 billion from the Chinese to support the private sector in that government program. Where were they? Where were they are thinking?
Caps?
No, not caps. They are think tanks to think through some of the things that President Akufo-Addo was talking, to be able to even neutralize his campaigns. You sat down, and God being so good, he's been in government, he's put together a good team. All the negative indicators out there are now being turned into positive. Free SHS, it's One District, One Factory. Very soon, the One Village, One Dam will be coming on stream. He talked about development authorities. Within a year, all those laws were passed, and he's assented to them. He spoke about the special prosecutor. He's been appointed. Yesterday, the speaker read the announcement or the communication from the president. The appointments committee is going to meet to vet him, and God willing, Parliament will approve him for him to start. Issues of corruption. Look at the reduction of government obligation that the Auditor General, I don't know if you are reading the publications, that we could have paid over 10 or 11 billion. Now it's been reduced to 5-point-something billion. Those are things that you must commend the government for. Otherwise, people would have enjoyed free of charge for no work done. So government is doing well in the area of the economy, in the area of education, industry, and we believe that the team that the president has put in place, the strategy, his work attitude. Listen to his work attitude. The time he goes to the office, time he leaves, the type of strategies he's putting in place. Yesterday he met his ministers and the CEOs of government institutions, brainstormed, look into the future and how he's going to create jobs, the Planting for Food and Jobs program, and what have you. It's a comprehensive program. He's a workaholic, and I believe that within the next 4 years, Ghanaians will see that the president has prepared himself to lead this country, and he's doing so well, and we must commend him. And I believe that the private sector must also embrace some of his programs and policies and ensure that they create the necessary space for the youth to be employed.
Oh, well, so we invited into the discussion the Member of Parliament for South Dying, but also a legal practitioner.
My classmate.
Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo. Your classmates at the
law school.
Law school, okay.
Yeah.
Good morning to you, sir.
From Legon to law school.
Yes, good morning to you. Good morning to you, Patrick. Good morning to your viewers.
And, well, where are you located now?
I was supposed to have joined you in the studio, but I have an emergency, so I am
All right. You know your GPS address?
It's not functioning.
It's not functioning.
Oh, don't mind him.
Patrick said I should tell you, you shouldn't be mischievous.
Don't mind him.
Patrick knows it's not functioning.
Patrick knows it's not functioning.
Don't mind him.
Okay. But we had Imani coming out publicly with this report being an assessment of the Kufuor-led government 1 year in office. And what would be your own assessment per what you have been reading as far as the publications and the outcomes of the Imani report have been?
Now, I'm very happy about this question, and I've listened to my brother Patrick carefully. Apart from the praising, which is talk, just my brother should show me, for instance, in terms of infrastructure. Let us talk about roads. Let us talk about other civil construction. Which project have they undertaken within the past 12 calendar months? Which major construction have they done? In fact, the budget they themselves brought to Parliament that we just passed the Appropriation Act to approve. In that budget, they have indicated that even the number of roads that they maintained in 2017 were less than the similar number of roads that were maintained in 2016. They have not constructed a single new road in this country for the whole of 2017. And even the existing continuing roads, they have abandoned hundreds of them. I move to free estate. My brother says, where were our think tanks to debunk the issue about the implementation or otherwise of free estate policy? Now, they have implemented the policy. When they were campaigning, the promise they gave was that they were coming to roll out a free estate policy to affect every school-going student at the secondary level. When they came to government, they changed the tune. They claimed that they will now implement the policy in phases. And so, if it is not progressive, then I do not know. Now, even as part of this progressive introduction of the PSHS, look at the problems that the introduction, because it's not been well thought out, has bedeviled the system with. Ask my brother if he can produce the policy document of the PSHS. If we're told that it's about a 45-page document, that will be uploaded onto the website of Ghana Education Service. I went there yesterday night. It was not there. So as I speak, I don't even know the policy guidelines underpinning the introduction of the PSHS. And you all heard it when they said that by the close of last year, they had only released 20% of the funding that is supposed to go to the schools. Now the schools are reopened. We're in the second term. So the arrears for the first term is outstanding. We are yet to even receive the payment for the second term. But what is strangely happening is that some of the headmasters speak to are saying that they have cleverly increased the school fees for those. For instance, my daughter who is in second year, the school fees have gone up. And that is what they are using to at least feed the first years until funding is released. So if that is not a systemic problem, with the introduction of the policy that they are tracing, then I do not know. I'll go to NHI. My brother is saying they sold almost $1 billion debt that was outstanding before they resumed office. But you see, I can also say so. They are not able to tell us which entities were paid. And this was a government that came for a mid-year review to say that they are not able to meet their revenue targets. So how in the same breath are they able to make some of these statements without any supporting evidence? If you say you are paid almost 1 billion of 1.2 or so outstanding NHIS debt, tell us the entities that you pay. You heard the president say that they are paid contractors. And immediately after his comment, contractors have come back to say that no, we have not been paid. The contractors are part of the society. They are Ghanaians. If they have received payment, they would have confirmed. But they are saying that they have not been paid. So it is not sufficient to always say that we have done this when the reality is not the case. Now, let's look at industry. What single factory was built in the first year of this government? One single factory. My brother, Mr. Boamah, they have it. Even the one that we inaugurated at the country, you know the story. I pointed it to you 2 weeks ago. That take your cameraman there and go and ascertain the situation for yourself. There were some existing industries or existing enterprises that had been established before we entered. Now, some of those companies trying to buy into the new policy. And so when governments go to, for instance, commission a ceramic factory in the Western region, it says it is part of the one district, one factory project. Fine. But how much funding has been released to such a company? As of October last year, about 160 district coordinators, that is through the coordinators and chief executives and the MPs, were invited to Sunyani as of October. And within that October period in Sunyani, they were telling us that they were now assessing proposals to be able to take off with the project. So for the whole of 2017, nothing really has happened in terms of the one district to actualizing the one district, one factory policy. And they are saying now the chorus is that we have a 4-year plan. Yes, but 1 year is gone, so you have 3 years. They promised they will establish 51 in the first year. It hasn't happened. Let's go to planting for food and jobs. We know that about 65% of Ghanaians are involved in agrarian business, whether in farming or micro-level processing of the product and all, but about 65%. Now, it would have been easier to gather data and implement this planting for food and jobs.
Well, so that's Roxanne Nelson Dapiamokpo, who is a legal practitioner but also member of parliament for South Dine. You seem to have had difficulty with the line there. But he was enumerating some key issues. But the truth is the macroeconomic indicators have improved. But for example, when it came to NHI, he wanted to know specifically which sectoral claims have been paid, even though we've had some announcements coming
Roland,
within the media.
I have today's graphic on page 41.
Right.
My colleague has spoken a lot of English, but with some
with some little
the facts are scanty. if you look at page 41, NHIA pays out, it's in the graphic, pays out 908.7 million to NHIS providers out of 1.2 billion debt. The only arrears yet to be cleared are claims tendered in from October to December 2016, for which a number of issues had to be clarified before payment could be made. This one, am I the one saying it? Didn't they accrue a debt of 1.2 billion? So is Dr. No lying? He's talking about one district, one factory. It's not an event. It's a process that government says within the time space given it, they will build a factory in each district. We don't want that ad hoc program that the NDC undertook that led to the country sinking. What happened to, so a lot of processes have to be undertaken. Government has involved the AGI, the private sector foundation. Government is just facilitating to ensure that they do the right, they provide the right business models, support them with the right access to funding through the facilitating ministry, that's the Ministry of Trade. So oftentimes you hear that the minister or his deputy will come out to tell you the number of business plans, proposals that have met a certain requirement that is going to go to the next stage to start the process. You don't want to facilitate the acquisition of funds to a businessman without stringent measures. Otherwise, you won't get the process in the right place. Two, what happened to the 200 senior high schools that they said they were going to build?
They built substantial.
50, eh? No problem. They did well. But the free senior high school has come to stay. And whatever it will take this government to sustain it, to improve upon the quality, equitability, and what have you, government to do it. Because it's a pro-poor program. And all the pro-poor programs that Ghanaians are enjoying today started under the MPP administration, whether under President Kufuor. So as for us, our quest to satisfy those below a certain ladder will do it, and to ensure that we raise them to a certain level and to bring Ghana back on track and to make Ghana work again.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for many of your contributions this morning. We have a couple of contributions on social media. So we go to Facebook. We have Prince Winful says, job creation is necessary. Our security very poor anyway. Ghana is gradually progressing, comparing to my visit last year. I believe it's somebody who lives outside Ghana. Your last year visit had a rebuttal. Joseph Pitchler, everything you saw being progressive was the handiwork, should have been handiwork of JDM. Okay. Akpalu Akpa, Imani, President Nanado promised to build Harbour at Keta 1 year past, still no show. Hashtag reminder. Okay, and so we have a couple of, let's scroll up. This one from Anderson says, you know, be easy. The youth need jobs. 84,000 people bought only immigration forms. It means that the youth are willing to work. Now, these people are using huge amounts of money to do football pitch at Medina Zongo. How much will they get? How much profit will they get from this? But football pays a lot of people a lot of money, if you don't know. And we have what we call a value chain. If you know what it is, you know that sports is big business around the world. So building a football pitch in itself is not a bad thing at all. It's actually a very good thing. No, it's about pitches in constituencies and yeah.
I'm trying to get one. I hope you support me.
Yeah, it's you know how I can help support you. So. Bentel Ninson Prince says, oh yes, with unemployment, we're all aware, and I don't think MB supporters will just come here and raise comment to say such an assessment is a lie. And the Shrifi said Mahama started Ghana and everything. He even started the world. How many jobs did he create? And what he started, do you know? By the way, is it not a good thing that another government continues in a good thing started by a predecessor? If indeed Mahama started Ghana and MPP government is continuing. Smoothness level seen here. Okay. So let's go. Let's scroll up. Let's scroll up. Let's scroll up.
Statements in Parliament.
Okay, let's scroll up. Okay. So we have 1, 2. Let's just read a couple so that we can add a discussion. Francis Okai says, I think government will do well. Let us give the government some time. The administration is too young for evaluation and assessment. All right. So, Patrick Boamah, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank
Member
you very
of Parliament
much,
for Kaikwe Central, Deputy Minister, Water and Sanitation. He wants a pitch in his constituency. I know Wembley, Ghana, in collaboration with the Zongo Development Fund, the Zongo Ministry, but also the Ministry of Youth and Sports, they are putting together pitches in our constituencies. One is being located in Medina, one will be in Ashama. Already there's one around
One has to come to Fadama.
Oh, that one is, don't worry, it will be facilitated
and
for you.
My Abeka La Paz roads, that's my heart. The roads within La Paz, Contada,
it has to be, at least, we need some material. Okay. We'll see how that goes. You're in government, so you don't have a problem.
I'm fighting. I always have to fight.
Yes, that's why you're a very good MP.